CCU Orlando and Aikens Counseling Center present The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 30, The Practice of Self-Care. And now, your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Thank you for joining me today. I'm Cynthia Alice, and I am the host of The Authentic Spiritual Journey. And we are here today in 818 Studios with my miraculous producer.
Hey, this is Dave Croft. What's happening, everybody? Hope your 2019 is going well so far. Here we are into week 3 already.
Week 3 of January, friends. Boom, the best is yet to be. We hope that you are continuing to do the work of your soul as we are here, receiving illumination and insight, and that is exactly what this show is about. Bringing our own journey to each of you and just a couple friends hanging out and sharing spiritual conversation. And of course, our goal and our intention is that, in fact, you are lifted up, you are guided, you are supported by us sharing our spiritual process. And so we welcome you back today. As always, we're glad to share this time with you, and really, frankly, are honored that you choose to share a portion of your journey with us. Right, Dave?
Yeah, and I tell you, it's been a good month so far. We're in the middle of our Dream Big series, and this podcast is running in correlation with not only the weekly message that you can hear right here at Experience of the Soul podcast channel, but also our Wednesday classes. Man, those are going really well, aren't they?
Yeah, I have been really pleased that we have more and more joining us online, and the numbers in person are incredible as well. I love coming together and studying spiritual principle. And most of all, what I love is to see other people just kind of getting lit up, from their own spiritual process and then moving forward. And we are having a lot of that and already experiencing some success, by working this journey.
It's a packed house. We had to open up, because we're there in Hightower Hall at
Right.
CCU campus.
Right.
We had to open up the kitchen for overflow seating.
Box seats.
Yeah, we had 21 people joining us online, and we have room for many, many more. So if you want to join us on Wednesday, we will have a link to that class in our show notes, and it's free to join. You don't have to register or pay for registration. And so if you're listening to us not in the Orlando area, please join us online for the courses as well as our weekly Sunday message.
Yeah, and I'm having a really good time that with all the message in the podcast correlating. I think I've been working way too hard with creating all this other material. And what I mean by that is often the Sunday morning message is a different topic than the podcast. And so instead, what we're doing over the next couple of months is whatever the Sunday messages are about are exactly what the podcast is also about, but what's happening is a deepening and an expanding of the same material. And so it's not like you're going to hear the same thing on the podcast as you do on Sunday morning. You're going to hear probably a slightly different perspective, an expanded connection in terms of how I'm working with the material and deepening stories. So I personally am having a great time with that, and I hope you are too.
Yeah, it's all working together because when you're in a classroom, the message, even though the overall theme is the same, the message is a little bit different. You can do things in a classroom differently than you can do things on a Sunday morning, which are different than you would do in a podcast where it's just you and the camera, and so I think it's really all working together. I'm not sure, it's nothing that we're going to be doing forever, but I think anytime we have these
big series,
big series, yeah, absolutely. I think it's great.
Yeah, I do too, and I hope our listeners, as our listeners, that this is supporting you. And please give us the feedback. We want to know. We're open. We're receptive, and our goal is to support you spiritually. Frankly, I don't need to hear any more of myself than I already do. I just got a funny text from a sibling this week who said, I just listened to your podcast last night. I watched you online this morning, and I've had a good dose of Reverend Cynthia Alice. And I said, bless you, sister. Oh, my goodness. What a dear sister she is. And in fact, I don't know who I would be without her. She was very, very important in my growing up. So I think it's so sweet that she watches.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, and listens online. So today's show is called, the title, I guess I should say, of today's show is the practice of self-care. And it's a very important topic, and it is a part of the third week that we are studying right now at CCU. At CCU, the talk title is very simply The Practice. But jokingly, I think that sounds like a TV show. So,
well, I think it is a TV show, but it's totally different subject.
Totally, yes.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not about spiritual growth or anything.
Yeah, right. I think it's about a bunch of lawyers. But anyway, the practice of self-care is very, very critical to a successful spiritual journey. And, for myself, this has been a difficult lesson to learn. I grew up really in a way, and I by the way, I'm feeling very reminiscent today because a couple of my siblings got together and took all of our home movies from way back when.
Oh, wow.
And put them on a private, a thing for us to view. And so I just saw some hilarious home videos.
And is it like old Super 8 film and that kind of thing? Or is it old scratchy video or? Like
a real, and so it's, some of it's scratch. I mean, there's no sound. That's right. How,
it sounds like Super 8.
It may be Super 8. I don't know. But, so anyway, I'm feeling very reminiscent today, I think. And what I started to say was, we all have patterns that are from our childhood and thing. And when I was coming up, I was the youngest, of a lot of kids. And part of my role that got established was to help take care of the people around me. And I think we all get that to an extent, especially if you're a woman in the South. That's just your job, friends. And it was something I loved to do. I didn't, I didn't hate my mom or anything for making me do that. As a matter of fact, a lot of what I learned growing up has supported me greatly in my ministry. There was home situations where that were difficult. My dad, really had, he was an alcoholic. My grandmother lived with us and she had Alzheimer's. So there was a lot going on in the household. And what I learned, again, was to take care of others. And even though that's a wonderful, wonderful thing, if I only take care of others and not myself, what I learned is over time, that can build up resentments, because I was helping out of obligation rather than, a desire to be of service. I don't know I hope that's making sense to you, what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've touched on it, that type of thing before, and we've explored kind of, Shannon growing up and not having kids and right. Also other family kind of obligation stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And even next month, by the way, we're going to be talking about some recovery stuff. So I'll go a little deeper into that. And I'm even going to go a little bit into love addiction, which is something not talked about a lot, but every popular song on the radio is in fact about that. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic. So the practice of self-care, I think for most of us, we learn to do that last. And so it's been important in my journey to learn to do this. And I think sometimes even I've had what I would call rude awakenings to wake me up to, to the fact that was necessary.
Well, there's a reason that, when the oxygen masks come out, they say, put on your own mask first, because you can't help anybody if you're suffocating. You can try, but it's not sustainable. And so there's a reason that they have to tell you that, because they know that instinctually
yes,
you will want to help others first.
Yes, it's so true. And again, there's nothing wrong with helping others. As a matter of fact, I really enjoy doing it.
Right, yeah, it doesn't say, put your mask on first, the plane's going down, and then laugh at everyone else as they... No, that's right. Not what it is. Put your help on before you help everybody else.
Well, and I can just tell you right now in my own consciousness, I'm in a struggle because... what I'm also thinking, thinking about, and I spoke to it, I think on the very first podcast of this month, where I was talking about a view from a mountaintop. There's so much narcissism in our culture now that, to even say the word self, I want to kind of present a caution and say, okay, if you're one of those people that's always putting yourself first, so this is where the internal work comes in to see what's yours to do. In my case, and in my journey, what tends to be is me putting others first. But here's what's so crazy that I've learned. I've said it once before, and I know I will say it again on this show, which is the kind of care of others that I'm talking about, in a way, it becomes narcissistic because you're doing it to get some kind of like something in return from those people. So it's a weird thing. And what I'm talking about in this particular show, the practice of self-care, is how do we take care of ourselves so that then we can live our vision and goals, in the world, our dreams, our vision, and then embodying our goals. So the practice of self-care, as I'm speaking about it today, is what are the things I need to do? The question we need to ask ourselves is, number one, what supports me? We're in week 3, so many of you have already been thinking about what's my vision, what's my goal, what's my dream, what do I want to be about? What is, and again, not what do I want, but what am I here to do? In other words, divine purpose is what this is about. What is Spirit wanting to do in and through me? So as I'm thinking about that, what Spirit is wanting to do in and through me, and then I start, making my goals, my short-term, my long-term goals, and maybe every day even I'm journaling about that. Maybe every day I'm praying about that. If I am not getting the support I need, then I will never be able to have that dream come forward for me. I will never be able to have that vision be made manifest through me. So we want to be really cognizant of what are the practices I can do to support me living this vision in the world. So this is not a question of what supports me. Oh, I want everything done for me. No. That's the narcissism I was talking about. What supports me means, okay, what enables me to do the work I need to do? For me, they're so simple. And I find the most profound things are often the simplest, that literally getting up every morning and walking my dog is an important part of my self-care. Every morning when I get up, taking a moment to check in with the universe about where do I need to be today? How is this energy, informing me? And even connection with the people I love. If I'm only about vision and goals and doing, I want to be careful not to forget the people I love in the process. So connecting with the people I love is a very important part of what supports me. And I'm really just understanding how important that is. That it's okay for me to both want and need and desire connection with the people I love.
And you're not being selfish asking for that.
Right. I'm not being selfish asking for that. I love it and I want it.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I feel better about the world when I have that. And I'm a real connection person. I love to talk to people. I love to be loved. Who doesn't?
Right.
But exercise, a connection with the people I love, eating well, working out. I mean, for Dave, I'm sure they might be slightly different than me, but boy, most people need kind of the basics.
Yeah, just really simple things that don't even have to cost money.
Oh, exactly.
For me, what supports me is making sure that I have a daily connection with Shannon at some point, and even simple things like taking a shower. I know that seems so, but I feel tangibly different about the rest of my day if I have my morning routine and I have my shower.
Actually, I get that. I really get that. I've been taking a day where, I'm so on my goals and my vision and my dreams. And usually I take Friday, off of everything. All day I feel strange. And so I'm like, you know what? This really is not supporting me. I've got to have still a little bit of time to do my journaling and my checking in with Spirit before I do anything else, because it grounds me for the whole day.
Yeah, and I find that even on vacation days or like a Saturday where you don't necessarily have to do those things, I find that even though I don't have to go to work or whatever, that I feel just unmoored a little bit.
Yeah, unmoored is it's like just untethered, ungrounded.
And the whole day just feels wobbly and weird, and it's not necessarily bad. Like I'm not having a bad day, but man, if I go through, and I think it's just about mentally just resetting, and we're being intentional about what the day, and so not sleeping in all day and just crawling out of bed and eating cereal and watching cartoons. And I guess I'm a 10-year-old boy, but
we'll save that for another show.
Right.
Well, you know what's so funny, Dave, is that this morning I woke up not feeling 100%. It was a really busy week, and I wasn't feeling bad about myself necessarily, but I got up, and because I didn't feel well, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to play a couple video games. I just got Galaga on the big screen. Oh, praise God.
Watch out now.
Anyway, and I did get my new controller for Christmas. So, because I never would buy I would never just spend $20 on a controller. I'd be like, that's too much money. But that's what my family got me for Christmas. And so I did that. And then I was going to watch a little bit of a show. And I found myself feeling so depressed. I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Am I sick? I feel off. I just did not feel right. And I said, I'm going to shut all this down. I'm going to go do my spiritual work. Oh my gosh, it shifted everything. So even though I'm still a little low energy, my spirit is really full. My spirit feels really, really awesome. I feel grounded. I feel plugged in, man, supported by the universe. And I felt, as we were talking earlier, just kind of untethered, unsupported.
Yeah, I do think there is something to be said about making sure you know how to have fun or remember, because that's the other side for me, is getting so busy that you don't make time for yourself and for recreation, and I just call it non-constructive downtime. I think that's really, really important. Shannon has been going just 100 miles an hour for what seems like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And so over Christmas, we actually did one of the things that we've done since we started dating, which was sitting together and just playing games.
Oh yeah, that's a lot of fun.
And she's like, "Wow, I really love this." I'm like, "Yeah, I know you do," which is why I've been encouraging you to do it. But because
your husband.
You get so busy, you kind of forget how refreshing that is. And so it's a balance,
It is a balance, and that's what's so funny. After I did my time of spiritual work, in other words, what I'm talking about today, the practice, after I got in alignment with my practices, well, then I was even though I was low energy, I got up, I took my dog for a long walk in a park we hadn't walked in ever. I don't think with this dog, we'd never walked there. And so I just felt a renewed sense of connection. And it was like, oh yeah, now I can go do something I want to do. But while I felt ungrounded and I was feeling unsupported, the truth is I was feeling unsupported because I wasn't supporting myself. It's like, the old story of God hasn't moved. I did. So
right. It starts with yourself, and it starts with being aware, and hey, this is why am I feeling weird today? It's because I didn't do the things that I know my spirit responds to and responds positively to, and it might be that I take a shower and I brush my teeth and I make my coffee and I clean out the cat box and still play video games and still spend the rest of the day watching TV or something. But it's spiritually, you feel like you're just, you have a solid footing.
Yeah, and I think that's what the practices, in fact, are all about. What supports me, and starting to get clear about that. And the reason we become conscious of it, what we begin to do then is we begin to embody it more as we become more conscious. Always, friends, the topic is about becoming conscious beings. And so when you're thinking now about what supports me, I want to encourage you to write it down, because as you check in with yourself every morning as you're doing some of the journaling work, that's if you're in the class and in the program that you've been doing every day, you are going to find that as you look at what your practices are every day on a piece of paper, they're going to start happening more because you have set a sacred intention and then you've begun to follow it up, and then you're cementing it in your consciousness by, reviewing every day. So I want to really encourage you to do that. I want you to think about, because we're about to go to break. So during the break, I want you to think about, begin to write down, what are the things that support me? It could be, and by the way, I want to tell you one of my number ones is rest. If I don't get rest, I am just not as good of a person. So be thinking about that on the break, what supports me, and then we're going to come back and talk a little more about how you can, in fact, support yourself on the spiritual journey that you might be having.
We'll return to the program in just a few moments, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partner, CCU Orlando, who has helped make this episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey possible. Christ Church Unity is a welcoming community dedicated to transforming lives, celebrating diversity, and supporting soul growth. CCU Orlando is located at 771 Holden Avenue in Orlando, Florida, with Sunday services at 9 and 11 a.m. You can stream services live online as well as learn more at christchurchunity.net. We would also like to extend our thanks to our podcast partner, Aikens Counseling Center. Cassandra Aikens is a licensed mental health counselor dedicated to creating sacred space where clients can explore their own inner process in a safe, non-judgmental, and supportive environment. She works with individuals, couples, and groups who are seeking to live a more authentic life. Aikens Counseling Center is located in Winter Park, Florida, and can be found on the web at CassandraAikens.com. We now return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey.
Welcome back. We're glad you're with us for show 30, The Practice of Self-Care. And on the break, I did give you an assignment. Now, we're not in church or in class, so I can't check to see if you did it, but I'm going to assume that because you're on the journey, you want to be what I would consider successful, which means that you're going to give your journey a little energy and a little consciousness. Of course, if you're driving right now, you couldn't write it down, but I want to encourage you to come back if you can't, maybe get where you're going and put a note in your phone or write it down. What supports me? And this is critical to your spiritual journey.
You mentioned rest right before the break, and one of the things that both Shannon and I do, because we're up at 5:30 on Sunday morning,
right?
Getting ready to church, and we have decided to consciously and purposefully crash after church.
Yeah,
like we come home, we're home, we're usually done eating lunch by 1:30, and we don't have anything else planned for the rest of the day. We never have rehearsals. We never, schedule anything with friends. We just purposefully don't do anything. And we have a Sabbath. I mean, even though we work Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon after church until the next morning is our Sabbath. And that's something that has been really good for our relationship. It's been really good for us to tell ourselves that's okay.
Yeah, well,
it's okay.
Even God rested
right.
a day,
and he was up for 6 straight days.
He was busy. Yeah, exactly. I think bringing back the Sabbath, we could do a whole show about that. I do think that's really important. And again, I'm glad you spoke, Dave, to the importance of a relationship, because one of the keys to a healthy relationship is, in fact, time together. Whether it's time resting, time playing, time working, time exploring, the time in terms of healthy relationship, I think, is critical. And in today's world, can get very challenging. It can get very challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. With so many things vying for your attention, and so many families are, dual income families, and everybody needs to work, and soccer, and music lessons, and extended blended families, and it's easy to kind of get in your own lane and not realize that you're not by yourself.
Yeah, and one of the things I think I might have mentioned briefly, one of my goals for my family and for my life is a no device day. And I remember when I wrote it down, my accountability partner says to me, so how's that no device day going? I said, well, it was going perfect until we wanted to know where to go for dinner that night. And I just absentmindedly picked up some device, to check that out. But in general, I mean, the idea was that, we wouldn't all be in the same room on a device. To use one if you needed one with something like that, it's not a major deal. But the idea was that, there was a day that we're not all on a device at the same time in the same room.
You just, a conscious decision to.
Yeah, to unplug.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what I've been doing, and I did take a little break from this. To be honest, I kind of forgot about it because I shifted the way I wrote my goals. And because what I was doing for myself is after dinner, I was doing, no computer, no phone. And I said, what did I used to do before I was plugged in this much? And it's like, oh, well, I played more guitar. I studied more music. I lit more candles. I pet my dog. I went outside on the back porch and turned on cool lights and hung out with a beverage and my guitar and my dog and my partner. Okay, this is sounding really good right now. So again, this was supportive of me. This was a window into, what would make me feel supported by the universe. And again, we have universal support always, but it is up to us to make conscious decisions to align with that. So, and Dave, I was glad you mentioned sometimes having fun is exactly the tall order.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that games were so important to us early on is we were broke college kids and newly married. We couldn't afford it. We were in a 600 square foot apartment. No, I think a 300 square foot apartment, teeny tiny apartment.
That was before tiny was hip.
Right, exactly. And so we had an old 13-inch color TV, and we scraped our pennies and bought a Super Nintendo, and we bought Super Mario Kart, and we played that over and over. Couldn't watch TV. Yeah, and so having fun and being together. It wasn't just hey, we're leveling up our characters or anything, but it was about being together and doing something jointly together. Mm-hmm. And
and I think it can be really fun to play video games with the one you love. It's fun with my 11-year-old, and it's wonderful that I know the games he's playing and I know what they're about, mm-hmm. and I approve every one. And then I also have a great time connecting with him because that's on his heart right now.
Yeah, he's been over here playing Lego games in the middle of us recording.
Yeah.
It's Iron Man on Lego in the background.
And what's scary is he also hears every word. I don't know how he multitasks that way, but so again, think about what does support you. Is it rest? Is it diet? Is it exercise? Is it all the above? And then as you're listing those things, I want to encourage you to not feel overwhelmed. Again, these are practices that support you. So you don't want to make a big list you can't do. You want to make a list to just lift up and remind yourself to stay on track so that the practices are what will enable you to live your vision, dream, and goals. So be mindful of this. Don't overwhelm yourself, which is tempting. Like, okay, I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to, blah, blah. It's not that energy. It's like what supports me in doing this work and then revisiting that daily.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe it's more about returning to something you already know or something that you used to do, but it's not, sit around and conjure up some new thing that I think will support me. Because at some point you were doing something that supported you, and you've gone away from it, or circumstances, or whatever. So for me, if I can return to something I already know works, then I don't have to wonder whether it's good for me or not.
Yeah, well, the old phrase written over the Temple of Delphi: "Know thyself," and we are always in a process of knowing more of ourselves. And this piece is very critical to that. Some of us honestly don't know what supports us because we're too busy doing what other people think we should be doing. And it's another reason that we discuss this as I started at the very beginning. I said I grew up in a situation, and I'm not sure anybody asked me to do that. That's just how I took in the support. I'm not sure the people around me necessarily did, but I would do things for others and not for myself. So for me, that's been a shift to really acknowledge and honor what would support me. And what I found, and this is one of the most important points, I think. What I found is as I do support myself, I'm just a better person in the world. And when I am supporting others, I'm doing out of a place of love, out of a place of true giving from the heart, and I really want to do it. So that old stuff of doing things out of obligation and having these built up resentments, that's non-existent. So I want to support myself. So yes, so I can live my vision and my dream and do my goals. But also when I am supporting others, it's from a real clean and clear place.
Right. Right. And you are able to put on somebody else's mask. So if your partner or spouse or whatever comes in need, you're not empty.
Yes, exactly right. And I think it's true in everything that if you give, and give, you do get to a point of being empty. It's like, I find it helpful to think of a lot of things in terms of a bank account, because if you don't make deposits, you can't withdraw. And so when you are thinking about emotionally and taking care of yourself, if you haven't put something in the bank to support yourself emotionally, when there's a need, you have nothing to pull from. And that can happen. And it can certainly happen when there are really busy schedules, when there's a lot of demands on time, and we feel like all we're doing is giving. And so this week is about pulling back a little bit from that and about, again, becoming more conscious. What's mine to do? How will I feel supported? And then be about that. So then when we do go into the world, when there are things asked of us, when maybe something challenging happens, we have the emotional fortitude, we have the ability to respond in love, which is, of course, what we all want to do.
Or just the perspective. You know, it's just like, oh, this really bad situation out of your control.
Yeah.
But if you're kind of, your rage meter is already filled up, or you're just not rage.
Your rage meter.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. I mean, that's why we have road rage.
Yeah.
The anxiety and the fear that people are just living in, and it's pretty intense right now.
Yeah, and one little thing goes wrong. Maybe you spill your coffee at work, or maybe you get cut off in traffic, or maybe you leave your wallet at home or something. And you can't buy lunch, and then that you're in a tailspin because you haven't been taking care of yourself. And sometimes it's not all on you. Sometimes it's not just you being bad at taking care of yourself. Sometimes just life happens. People who are caring for loved ones, or who have, like you, an extended family. Somebody needs to step up, else this doesn't get done. And
exactly. And so what we are doing, and I'm repeating myself on purpose, we are becoming more conscious about what is ours to do. As we know what's ours to do, as we're beginning to live into the dream and vision God has for us, as we begin to set concrete goals about, okay, I'm going to move forward and do this, I'm going to move forward and do that, and my long-term goal is out there. Well, then I don't want to feel like I'm just marching forward and taking people out as I do it. I also don't want to wear myself out, doing all this stuff. So it's really it behooves me. It's incumbent upon me to pull back and say, well, what do I need to complete these things? So I could move forward on a goal, but if I'm not supporting myself, if I'm not feeling supported, then the way I move forward could not be in love. There's a potential rather that I could be moving forward and, as it's tempting to do, climbing that ladder, which there is no ladder, but climbing that ladder and stepping on people as I go. But no. I want to move forward. I want to move forward in love. And I can more easily do that when I'm receiving the support I need. And then finally today, what I want to talk about is committing to the practice of whatever does support you. I mean, I'd say there's two main things we've talked about today: what supports me, and then committing to what supports me. If you know what supports you, and you're not doing it on a regular basis, friends, you are going to know it. You are going to know it, because you're not going to feel full of love, full of joy, full of energy. You're going to feel tired. You're going to feel worn out. You're going to feel like the world is against you. And so commitment to the practice means daily I'm checking in with myself. I'm looking at maybe what I've written down as the practices, and then I'm being about that. So on a pretty regular basis, I'm doing those. Like Dave said, life happens, and we can shift and change, and that's not a problem. But if we're only shifting and changing, and not supporting ourselves, that's when we get into trouble. So we want to commit to the practice that we say will support us, and then you'll begin to see the fruits of your labor.
Yeah, and I also think it's important. This is why doing something you already know works or has worked before is important, is because you're probably more likely to kind of stick with it, and not in a weird kind of New Year's resolutions kind of way, but
Right.
but if it's something that's so new or something that's so drastic or represents a tectonic shift of lifestyle, then that's
Yeah.
going to be tough to maintain. Let alone, it's going to be hard to see results anytime soon. One of the things about getting up early and taking my shower is I get out of the shower and I'm clean. It's like
Ready to go.
That is an immediate verification that this works for me.
It's a new day.
Yeah, just like if your goal is to lose weight, don't say I'm going to lose 50 pounds. That might be the larger goal, but that's not something you can hold in your spirit every single day, losing 50 pounds. That's
Right.
maybe you can. I can't. That feels insurmountable. But if I treat the day, if my goal is to lose weight, if I treat my today's goal, and what's supporting me is eating right, is what 2-3 decisions can I make
Yes.
that one day
Yes.
to support that, and so yeah, just don't try to eat the whole giant elephant at once. You have to take it piece by piece.
Right. And one of the things too, friends, and I want to leave you with this today. So turn it up for what I'm about to say. On the emotional level, when we go to sleep at night, if we're really taking with us the past hurts, the resentments that may have built up, or maybe even we've kept somebody out of our heart today. A good friend said it that way one time. In other words, if somebody at work's bothered us or hurt our feelings, or maybe somebody did pull out in traffic and it just really frightened us and got our anger going, I want you to really consider, when you're going to sleep at night, is this going to create a block for you in the coming days, weeks, months, so that when, as Dave was describing his morning ritual of getting out of the shower and feeling good and ready to start his day, what I'm telling you is, emotionally, if you're not also doing that, you will get in your own way in terms of moving forward on the journey. It is incumbent upon us to always be in the mode of release, releasing what no longer serves us emotionally. And I talk a lot about it in the physical world as well. But what might we be holding on to psychically, emotionally, even spiritually? What is that baggage that we might be holding on to? So we want to, before going to sleep at night, so that the next day can be this good and grand adventure that the universe has for us. It can never come forward for us if we're holding on to the past.
Yeah, that's so good. My morning actually starts the night before. And it starts with setting intention. This is what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
And it starts with making sure my alarm is set. It starts with prepping the coffee maker the night before.
Yep.
So that the next morning, all I have to do is say, Alexa, turn on the coffee maker. Science right there. Oh,
Gotta love that.
She's going to think I'm talking to her here in the room.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And so, but I know, for example, setting the coffee maker. I've never regretted setting the coffee maker up the night before.
That's right.
But I have absolutely regretted not setting up the coffee maker the night before.
Right. Well, and when I'm preparing for something important, when I'm preparing for the podcast, when I'm preparing for Sunday morning, even for work, I have little rituals. I'm sure you all do too. One of my rituals is to get my clothes ready the night before. And I like to put them out, and I like to make sure they're ironed, and I like to make sure that I'm ready for the next day. And so that is telling my consciousness that something important is happening tomorrow. I've jokingly talked about on Sunday morning when I had a meeting with the governor, and I'm not in alignment with our former governor politically, but I thought it was really important that I show up in respect for the meeting I was going to have with him. And so I jokingly said to my partner, the name of a very expensive department store. And she said something like, "Oh, well, you don't want to pay $500 for a blazer." And I burst out laughing. I was like, and then I walked in and said, "Oh my gosh, you can pay $500 for a blazer." And I think I did, $500 or $600. And I didn't care how much it cost. because I wanted to show up with as much intention as possible. And I thought, if I'm going to meet with a leader in government, I am going to look the part, that I belong here, that I am here not by accident, but I have been divinely appointed. And so the way I showed up was with a lot of intention, and I was glad I did, because I sat to his right. And there were a lot of people there, and I was in the seat of honor at his right hand.
That's right.
So intention plays a large role in what we're talking about today. Always in the spiritual journey. What are we intending? Maybe the night before, maybe even the morning of. Consider that, friends. What are the things that support you? It might be taking your shower in the morning. It might be setting your clothes out at night. For me, on a Sunday morning, it's also making sure my shoes are polished. I'm old school. That when I was a kid, one of my jobs was I took a little shoe shine kit up to the neighborhood grocery store, and I sat out front and I polished shoes.
You were a bootblack.
Yeah, I did. I did that, and I still love to polish my shoes today.
Well, I did not. And my dad, who was a Marine.
Oh, yeah.
He definitely. I did not get that gene.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
no.
Well, and again, for me, it's intention.
Yeah.
It's how do I want to show up? How do I show that I care about being here? And that's it's a little thing. And several years ago, when I was in Phoenix, the senior minister was joking around, and a mutual friend said, "Oh, did you tell him about your shoes?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" She goes, "About you shining them." And I was like, "Oh, I like this guy. I do that too." And it's just a way that I feel ready for whatever next thing I'm going to do. So I know these are real basic things, friends, but I hope you're connecting with them. I think you probably are. It's the tiny things in life that make us feel either supported or unsupported, and can impact us in how we go into the day. The practice of self-care is, in fact, a really important aspect of accomplishing your vision, or even if you're thinking of it as a dream, and then living those goals. We want you to feel supported by the universe, and we know the universe is always, always supporting you. So our word to you today is remember to support yourself as you get up every morning, as you go to bed at night, even as you walk through your day. What are those things? What are those practices you can do to lift yourself up, to remind you of the truth of who you are, and that enable you to live that vision, dream, and goals that you have set for yourself out in the world? So remember that always we are supporting you here at The Authentic Spiritual Journey, and we are thrilled, honored, and delighted that you choose to share your spiritual journey with us. So thank you for joining us today, dear friend. And as always, when you recommend to a friend, we are so grateful. So many blessings, and we'll see you next week.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey, presented by CCU Orlando and Aikens Counseling Center, here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible through the continued support of our angel patrons, Dove Borland, Angela Martinez, Peter Gibson, and Paul Caswell, along with our partner patrons, CCU Orlando and Aikens Counseling Center. If you would like to help be a part of bringing shows like this and other programs to the channel, please consider becoming a patron. For more information, episode show notes, and details about our other shows on the channel, head over to experienceofthesoul.com. And if you enjoyed this program, you can help spread the word by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, or the podcast platform of your choice. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2019, Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.